friends of well-maintained investments. Today, we're going to talk about a particular question that is being hotly debated in the crypto market. Namely, why should you even buy XRP if, in theory, you could also own Ripple shares? That's exactly where the discussion is getting bigger and bigger because a lot of people simply say, Ripple is the one building the partnerships, Ripple is developing the products, Ripple is working with various banks, and at the end of the day, Ripple is the one doing all the business. So why not just bet on the company instead of the token? And to be honest, I think at first glance that doesn't sound all that wrong. But in my opinion, this is exactly where a huge misunderstanding lies. Because, Ripple and XRP are certainly connected, of course, but they are definitely not the same thing. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. In my opinion, it's very interesting because it's a question that a lot of people are asking themselves. Also, of course, why today's financial system is still extremely slow and what kinds of problems are currently arising there, and why XRP could possibly be much more important in the long term than Ripple itself. We'll also take a look at why so many people completely misunderstand the difference between a company and a network. And before we get started, please feel free to give this video a thumbs up. Every single second of your support means a lot to me. If you're up for it, feel free to share the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you're new here. If you're interested in VIP5, the link's been in the description for weeks. This is truly unique in the German-speaking region. The discount is the highest, the level is the highest, and we've simply negotiated something special. That's why it's so high. So if you're interested, the link is in the video description. It's worth it. But now let's get started. A lot of people make comparisons. Right now, many are comparing Ripple stock with XRP as if it's basically the same bet. But in my opinion, that's absolutely not the case because you really have to clearly separate Ripple from XRP. Ripple is the company, and XRP is simply a digital asset that operates within an open network. That's a completely different structure, because let me put it this way. If you own Ripple shares, then you own a stake in a company, in this case Ripple. It's simply about revenue, profits, employees, products, investors, and just classic company valuation. And with Ripple, on the other hand, it's simply about how important this network will become in the long term, also in the coming years, etc. And that's exactly the huge difference. Let's take a look at the current financial system. We live in a time where you can communicate worldwide in seconds. You can easily upload videos late at night, send messages worldwide in an instant, or shop online for anything you need. But if you ever find yourself wanting to make much larger bank transfers on a public holiday or a weekend, you quickly realize just how incredibly old the whole system really is and how outdated the financial world remains in general, and that it simply doesn't work smoothly. Banks just have fixed opening hours and transfers often or sometimes take days. International payments get stuck extremely often, and this is exactly where blockchain becomes interesting. Because, networks like the XRP ledger theoretically run around the clock, 24/7. There are no holidays, no weekends, no traditional banking hours, etc. And just that alone is already a massive difference. That's exactly why Ripple is still extremely important, because someone, of course, has to bring the technology into the real world. Ripple talks to banks, Ripple develops products, Ripple builds software, Ripple takes care of regulatory issues, so you could basically say Ripple is the bridge between the old financial world and the XRP ledger, and that's exactly why Ripple naturally plays a big role, but still that doesn't automatically mean that Ripple has to be more valuable than XRP in the long run. Because Ripple helps to spread the network, of course, but the actual network remains the XRP ledger. That's also very, very important to simply know. And this is exactly where many people simply make a thinking error. My Ripple stock is still tied to the company. XRP, on the other hand, is simply connected to an open network, and networks can reach completely different scales in the long term. Because with XRP, theoretically, it's not just about a single company, but about the movement of value. And if, at some point, stablecoins, digital stocks, bonds, or international liquidity run through such systems, then we're suddenly not talking about something minor anymore, but about something extremely big. And that's exactly why many people, of course, see XRP as much more exciting in the long term. It becomes especially interesting as a lever now because, honestly, Ripple itself could one day even be tokenized on the XRP ledger. And that's exactly what highlights the difference once again. It's actually a perfect example because Ripple would then basically be an asset running on the network, but the network itself would still be the XRP ledger. And that's exactly why I also believe that many people simply mix up these layers completely. Ripple can become a very valuable company. There's no need to debate that, but XRP could theoretically become part of a much, much larger global infrastructure. And I think that's what we should be focusing on. And that's exactly why I also find all the criticism surrounding XRP a bit strange at times. Let me put it this way. With XRP, people are always saying there's a company behind it, etc. But if we're being honest, almost all major network companies have developer teams or economic interests in the background. That's completely normal. For example, Ethereum has Consensus, Solana has Solana Labs, Bitcoin has huge mining companies, ETF providers, and generally also custody firms. It's just that with XRP, this is often suddenly made into a huge point of criticism, and to be honest, that just doesn't make much sense to me. Everyone tries to push their own projects in some way, but with XRP, suddenly everything is seen as negative, even though things often work pretty similarly with the others, or in some cases, exactly the same. But in my opinion, the really interesting question is rather, where does the value actually accumulate in the long term? Is it with the company that on the one hand drives adoption, or is it with the network through which actual value will flow later on? And that's exactly where XRP becomes extremely interesting for me, because if at some point huge capital flows, digital payment values, or global payments are simply handled 100% autonomously, then the network effect arises directly at the ledger level, and that's precisely why many see XRP as simply the biggest asymmetric leverage that exists in the entire crypto market. But of course, nothing is guaranteed, but overall, I just think that many people look at XRP far too superficially and massively underestimate it. Most people just see the coin in the chart, and that's it. For many, that's simply all they pay attention to, but the actual idea behind it is much, much bigger. But I mean, if digital financial systems really continue to grow at this pace, then of course the actual economy could become much more important than any individual companies. And that's exactly why XRP remains a long-term project for me. It's still one of the most exciting altcoin projects on the crypto market. Feel free to let me know how you see it, whether you think it's realistic, and whether you generally find the topic of stocks exciting. Or even say, hey, the stock is what's exciting. Yeah, don't look at XRP. That's not really worth it. A lot of people say that, yes, very, very many. I think for many people, it's simply the thought, okay, maybe I missed the boat. Now we're already at a market cap of XY. The price is always somewhere between $1 and $2. It's just not interesting for me. I think a lot of people simply can't imagine what a major transformation is currently taking place and what else is coming our way in the next 10 years. But of course, I can totally understand that many people just can't think that far ahead because it's just so incredibly big. But I mean, you could basically apply that to every era. People at the end of the 90s didn't think that either, that, I don't know, 26 years later, we'd be where we are now and have the kinds of possibilities we have today. So relatively speaking, development is just getting faster and faster. And that means we don't need another 26 years now, but rather, 8 to 12 or something like that. So let's see. And the pace is increasing dramatically. And I believe that XRP could simply be an opportunity there. That doesn't mean it will be, but I do think it's definitely interesting to take a closer look at it, or at least to follow its development. It's not about investing or anything like that, but just about being involved in the topic. Yeah, exactly. That's definitely all I wanted to say about that. Please leave a like. It helps a lot. Subscribe. And if you're interested, new customers get VIP 5 instantly. If interested, the link's in the description. This offer is unique. This special deal saves you plenty, giving you the same benefits as millionaire traders instantly. Check it out if you're interested. At the latest, we'll be in touch again on Thursday. With that in mind, keep your chin up and see you soon.